The road ahead has never been more clear. Success belongs to those who take the lead. Welcome to Dealer Insights, the podcast that puts you in the driver's seat of growth. Hosted by Vin Machici, industry leader with over 30 years in automotive. This is where experience meets innovation. From cutting-edge technology to game-changing strategies, we go beyond the surface to bring you the insights that matter. Real conversations to help you navigate the ever-changing automotive landscape. Buckle up. Your next competitive advantage starts now. Imagine if every conversation your dealership had, every phone call, email, text, or chat could talk back to you. Not just repeat what was said, but reveal what was meant. Who's ready to buy? Who needs help? Who's slipping away to the competition across town? What if your next biggest opportunity wasn't in your CRM, but it was an alert on your phone or sitting in your inbox? Welcome to Dealer Insights. My name's Michael. I'm here with Matt Watson. Matt, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Good to be here, Michael.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate you joining up here. And I know this particular topic, conversational data, it's your world. It would be insane to talk about this. Not that I haven't had conversations with other people, but creme de la creme. And I want to take a minute for the viewers. If you don't know what conversational data is, it refers to the digital record of all communication between a business and its customers across channels like phone calls, emails, SMS, or text messages, and live chats. Conversational data, when structured and analyzed, reveals actionable insight into customer behavior, sentiment, intent, and in your case, dealership performance. Matt, if you could just give us a little history. I mean, you're not just, of course, your current position, but your history in the business. Can you talk to that and just let everyone know?
Yeah, I grew up in the car business. I had aunts and uncles and parents. We all grew up in the car business, and so I started just doing yard work at the car dealerships was my first job, and ended up working every role possible. Even started our first BDC in a family store, and we had as many as 3, and I moved through multiple other dealer groups as well. And so I got to see the technology and processes and communication change over almost 20 years now in the car business.
So you and I have been in the business about the same amount of time, but obviously two totally different. Our paths almost crossed, right? I think you used an agency that I actually helped start and used to work for.
That's right.
Way back in the day. It's actually how I started in this business.
There we go.
So thanks for sharing that. What brands, what OEMs? You were franchise, right? Not independent.
Yep. So I worked with Nissan, Toyota, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. And goodness, what else did we have? That was the majority of it. Yeah, up to 4 Nissan stores at one point.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So look, if you're in the business, you know, being involved in a Nissan dealership, I mean, that's like basic training and boot camp for retail automotive, man.
Yeah. It was trial by fire for sure.
Yeah. It's an interesting brand. We'll leave it at that. So what are you doing now, Matt?
Well, now I'm the VP of product development here at Strolid.
What's that mean?
So I help us as a company prioritize what we're building for our customers, sometimes ourselves, based on what the most urgent need is at this time. and how much work and how much cost is factored in. And so that's it. Yeah, just maximize our impact day to day.
I've seen some of your work, and I know it could come across as me being a little biased because, well, we're on the same team, right? But it's impressive. And beyond being impressed, it's important. The industry is not only evolving, but we are at the precipice of a revolution that hinges on today's topic. This is my opinion. I think you agree, but I'm not here to speak for you in any way, shape, or form. Can you give us, just tell me about the changes you've seen from when, day one at Strahlid and how that's evolved into the work that you're doing today, and, tie that back to Conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So first off, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. Good to know the hard work pays off. And so to talk about kind of the growth, when I joined Strala, it wasn't much different than the car stores I left. And what we're used to in the car business is everything as it relates to the data and conversational data. All the data in the car business comes from the DMS. It comes from an inventory provider. The DMS data can come from external, or it's something we type in, and then the CRM as well, right? So almost everything is the structured data or it's human input. And so that's where Strolid was. Everything we did was in our system and the dealer CRMs. Everything was manually entered, or if we had some automations, that was happening too. And what clicked was what none of the services out there have, whether I could list how many vendors are out there now in the automotive world, but they're all using the same data as well, right? Or they're asking you to input more data. But what very few had was the conversational data, right? And what the conversational data was a whole layer of information that specific people listen to. If I'm a BDC agent, for instance, I have my CRM form in front of me. I'm listening for those blanks I need to fill in. What car do I want to look at? What am I interested in, right? But I've got one form field, year, make, model, or I could pick from my inventory. I've got one trade field, color, miles. I've got a name, a phone number, an email. But that's what I'm focused on. Everything else as a BDC agent, some things may be important. I may be trained to say what zip code they're in based on financing things. I may ask, are you military? I noticed it was a USAA lead, right? There's a few things like that. But if you're not trained to recognize it, it just all goes away. And that's
into the ether. I mean, you have to understand BDC agents and advisors are dealing in volume. Okay. It's a contact sport, and to expect to have comprehensive overview of a 5-minute conversation when they're going for the appointment, they have a comment field in the CRM, they're trying to put something in there so they remember the next time they speak with that customer, they can pick up where they left off, maybe, right? And all of the conversational data was gone. It was never accessible. And when I joined the team, I was introduced to a very interesting phrase, dark data. And it helped me understand and have that aha moment that we have data and insight now that was unaccessible. And we are not talking, I have to make this point, Matt. If you think you have conversational data because you have a transcript, you're wrong. I'm sorry. I'm just going to be blunt and honest, not sugarcoat it. That is not conversational data and what we're talking about. Same thing in the CRM when it comes to a phone call, but also the text, the chat, and the email. Those historically have been silos, right? And when we know from our CTO, not that it takes the CTO and to tell us that siloed data is bad. It's just bad because it's limited. And Matt has broken that barrier down, ladies and gentlemen. So that's where the excitement comes from on this topic. What type of impact have you seen, and what things, with that retail experience, like how has that changed your mindset and your approach, and like what's the magic behind it for you?
Yeah, well, I'd love to talk on that because that's huge. We recognize the silos, right? Our CTO pointed that out, and I'll illustrate that. So a great company, we use them, Car Wars, right? They record your call. You can get a number for your cars.com listings, or back in the day, your newspaper listings, right? Whatever it was. And so you could do market analysis, that you get your call recordings. They have somebody listening to them and scoring them, and great company, right? But that was a silo. And what I meant by that is if I wanted somehow to analyze those conversations and know when somebody mentioned maybe my competitor's name, there's technology for that. But my recordings and transcript lived in the Car Wars silo, and I had no way to feed that somewhere else unless I'll just use my own phone system. But then Car Wars says, wait, that's not our silo. We need that in ours. And so that conflict spreads to SMS, to email, lead data, questions in the lead. So what we did is got with our CTO, he comes from the telecom world, and we wrote an internet standard, a global internet standard, the IETF. I call them the Knights of the Round Table in the telecom world, and everything has to go through them. So your www was IETF, right? Something we type all the time. So we created the Vcon, and the purpose of the Vcon was it's a data standard for conversations and anything else that gets attached to it. And when we build Vcons, which we do today, that enables us to have a set of data, the recording, the transcript, that we can then feed anywhere else. And all these applications, I mean, look at the growth of AI now, right? November, a couple of years ago, OpenAI came out, right? I mean, that's changed our world completely. But do they have access to Car Wars? No, right? But now with the Vcon, a phone system that publishes Vcons for the dealer can be fed into Chat GPT. And tools are coming out every day and are changing to ingest Vcons as well. So as that grows and becomes more adopted, yeah, it makes that a whole lot easier. It solves the silo problem.
So with the, I think just touching on the IETF briefly, to create a global standard that's not for the faint of heart. You don't just fill out a form and get approved.
That's right.
It's a pretty extensive, thorough vetting process. And then once your protocol has been vetted, and I think they do just a couple per year, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's right.
2, maybe 3 per year. And like Matt said, www, that is a global standard. HTTP, global standard. HTTPS, global standard. Emails, right? MX records and a name and all of this technical stuff that is, it's probably over your head. It's over my head a little bit. I mean, I understand it with a digital marketing background. I know the purpose of it, but like the actual inner workings is beyond me. So with this standard, we're able to take conversations that happen in various channels and structure them the same exact way while maintaining the integrity of the conversation, the source of it. And so now, where does that go? The emails and the text messages, like, technically, let's just give a little bit of insight. So the viewers and listeners understand the components that are in play here.
Sure. Yeah. So it's all built around what we call a conserver, right? And so any company, any enterprise can deploy their own conserver. It could be in the cloud. It could be on a server behind a firewall, back in a closet somewhere. And it's got open source software on the back end. So as we're building plugins, which we need to do, it becomes available to everybody. So being the ones who built the first, what we did is say, okay, what do we plug into our conserver? And first thing is a phone system. And maybe we have a secondary phone system for another use case. We built a plugin for that, an adapter. Text messages, emails, customer replies that come through different sources, CRM data. And we build these adapters that are now shared between everybody. And as it hits the conserver, it takes whatever format it's in and dumps out the same Vcon format, regardless of where it came from.
So all of the conversations flow in to the conserver. It does its magic, right? It processes all of that, and then it has an output.
That's right.
And the output is, you just mentioned it, a Vcon, which is an abbreviation for a virtualized conversation. The virtualized conversation, not to be confused with a virtual conversation, okay? Two totally different things, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Okay. Because these are actual conversations. They've been virtualized. Now, where does that go?
Wherever you want it to go. And that's what's exciting, right? So you can store them. We want to store them. And there's use cases for doing that. But wherever you want. In fact, an early name we gave them was the Vcon is robot food. So show me a robot. We'll send it there and they'll run with it. And so we've built a few applications, which I'm happy to talk about, that consume Vcons. And now, again, out in the telecom industry, everybody's starting to slowly develop these applications so they can consume our Vcons or somebody else's for whatever need.
What's really impressive is how all of this has come together. And so Strahlid, right, over 11 years ago now, and Vin, for over 30 years, has been living in this world that revolves around conversations. And the alignment between himself, his thoughts, Thomas, Shauna, the team, right? The amazing team figured out a way to tap into dark data that can actually have a significant impact, not only to an individual dealer, but my earlier statement about the revolution. This is an automotive revolution.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about the applications that we've built internally, but before we get into that, I just want to make 2 points. One is a conserver can be deployed for any business, any industry, anywhere in the world, as long as there are conversations. And it doesn't matter what channel. Even if it's a channel that we didn't mention, if it's a conversation, you can get Vcons creating that robot food, that data to feed to an AI model. And we're agnostic on the AI model.
That's right.
So think of the Conserver as your operating system. Whatever you want to see or do with that information, if you can think it, it can be done. The second point is just to give a little bit of context. If you've heard of AI, you've probably heard of OpenAI, or more commonly known as their product, Chat GPT. Chat GPT, if you use it currently, at this point in time, April 30th, 2025, you have to select which AI model you want to use. But the most recent is 4.0, I believe. Maybe 4 or 5. I'd have to look. I think, 4 or 5. Well, let me give you an idea of what 4.0 was trained on. The 4.0 model was trained on the entire open internet. So excluding the dark web, the internet that we all use because we're not weird, the entire open internet, okay, that was over 13 trillion tokens of text.
Wow.
And that's what it was trained on. So when you ask it a question and it gives you this response, it's because it just researched the entire internet on that topic, whatever you're asking it to assist you with. If 4 had the entire open internet, what does that tell us? That AI is running out of data. Well, every single conversation that a customer has with your dealership, one customer may be calling on the same used vehicle as another customer, but those conversations are unique, and that data is unique. So, with those 2 points, somewhat long-winded, my apologies on that,
No,
Mr. Watson. Can you share with us in our captive office structure, right? What real world problems did we start solving for dealers with this superpower? It's what it is.
Sure. And I'll take you down the path. And it's been fun because we've got to develop the Conserver and mature the Vcon as we were developing applications, because they helped us prove things out. So the very first thing we did, which we often don't talk about externally because it was purely an internal tool, but we built a dialer that utilized Vcons. And now this technology isn't new, but building it on Vcons is, right? So what our dialer now does is, if I'm an agent in a BDC here at Strahlid, for instance, and a customer calls in, if it recognizes that phone number, we've got a database of Vcons with that customer's data, with analysis tied to it, with transcriptions. It's going to populate all sorts of great information on the screen. It's going to tell them the last conversation that was had, right? That alone can completely change how that conversation goes. I think that alone can give you, I call it like a little bit of a Ritz-Carlton effect, right? If you've been to a Ritz-Carlton, it's magic how they do it. You can walk in an elevator, go to your room. You've never seen the guy in the elevator before. And he says, "How are you doing, Mr. Watson?" Right. And that just blows your mind. So in the same sense, our pop-up that our agency can say they were on a call 30 seconds ago. Right. So right away you could see, "Oh, I saw you just hung up with Michael. Were you disconnected? Can I get you back there?" Right. I mean, think of all the phone calls you have in a month, whether it's your car insurance, your health insurance, your doctor's office, a contractor to fix your house, whatever it is, right? You never get that type of service, right? But we provide it now instantly, right? So we see the outcome of that call as well. We see oh, they have an appointment for later today, right? Were you calling in reference to your appointment today? Or do we need to reschedule? Is everything good? We know if they had an outstanding question because we turn over these questions to our dealer. Maybe it's, hey, they're curious about your partner programs based on where they work. They want to see if there's an extra discount, right? They see that data right away, and this is before they answer, right? So at a glance, they know, oh, I can be equipped for this. Here we go. And now once they answer, we present all that data and a little bit more for them. So we've just AI and Vcon, we've just equipped our agents to just be assassins on the phone.
So it's mind blowing. Look, I have a marketing background, right? And I've mentioned this in the past. I don't recall me talking about it specifically with you. As a former agency owner, we're running paid search, right? And we're tracking phone calls. We had our attribution model and would do the dynamic phone swap and cookie and, right, track them for a period of time. And we would report back, hey, Mr. Dealer, you had this many phone calls from your paid search. The first question every dealer asks, how many of those were sales? I don't know. I mean, we have a sales number and a service number, right? So we try that, and then, the dealer wants to go back to a single phone number and with the IVR and right. But when people can't get through to the busy service department, they just want to talk to somebody, then they'll call back and hit the sales line. And now we have sales with service conversations after, but you don't discover it until you're in this reactive environment where pressure's being applied to find out. And there's no way to listen to 589 phone calls for the month from paid search. Like, it just is unrealistic. I could only listen to 24 hours of phone calls in a 24-hour period. Right. So, I mean, we didn't even get into I don't want to discount. That's an amazing tool. And the customer experience is the objective. So that's phenomenal and very powerful, very relevant. And I'd like to hear more. All right, let's go.
Along the timeline. So the next item we addressed is we said, okay, we've got Vcons and we're doing things with them, but they don't have a face, right? Whether it's us at Strala or our dealers, let's give everybody a way to look for Vcons and then make them look pretty on a screen so they can see all the data we have, right? So what we did is we call it conversation search. And so conversation search allows me to go in and type a keyword or somebody's name. So one example I use is if I'm a dealer in Brooklyn and I'm trying to expand my market share right into a neighboring market, steal some of their deals, I could search Staten Island. And what that's going to do is look through customer names and info. It's going to look through lead data because we attach that to our Vcons. But it's also going to look through summary and transcript of every phone call, text, email. And what it's going to do is present in a nice picture when I say, okay, I want to see conversations, not customers named Staten Island. All those, when they happened, a summary. I could drill down to that customer and see all their conversations. But it's that easy. Whereas, as you were saying, as a marketing person, or maybe I'm a trainer at a store responsible for QA of my own sales team, right? I would have to listen one phone call at a time, hoping to hear that, right? And so here we are. I type Staten Island, and bam, there's 50 of them in the last month.
So scalability is there, and it brings a level of precision that we've never really had. right? It all starts with a lead. Then what? Well, the goal is it ends with an amazing buying experience. I used conversation search recently. Tariffs.
Yeah, there you go.
I wanted the baseline, and I seen in the first 3 weeks of March, there was some talk. Not a lot.
Right.
The following week, the last week of March, surpassed the previous 3 weeks. So, and then the first week in April, it tripled again. More than a 3x. In fact, if we compare the first week of March to the first week of April, we're talking an 800% increase.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and it's tapered off.
Yeah, it's great. Marketing research is an incredible use case, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that. I had done a little digging, and again, like I find these tools very insightful, and wanted to share some of how it could be used if you're.
Well, I'm glad you gave that example, Michael, because I knew from talking with the team internally, same timing, a dealer had that question. And so we showed him again, hey, this is a tool we've released for you. This is a great use case. And so he went in there, tariffs is what he searched for, right? And now it's because he's in the news, he's a dealer, he's worried about the impact. It was very early. And to your point, there was really none there, right? But as a dealer, why did he do that, right? Why would he ask that question? Because he's being proactive. He's ready to pivot. He's ready to shift marketing and messaging. How could he ever know that before, right? A survey, walking around the store asking people, right? Asking his team. But again, even down to the BDC, what are they listening for? Vehicle availability, needs, questions that no one's going to remember. They mentioned tariff.
No, it's moving into the proactive mindset. That's what it allows, where you can identify and act. So super powerful. What came after conversation search? So we have the dialer and conversation search, all powered by Vcons. What's next in the roadmap?
Yeah, and I'll lead into that with this. One of the outcomes we didn't really expect with search, we thought it would be purely a research tool. What we found is it became a way to find these problems and solve problems or opportunities, like you said. We saw things, I won't say, we kind of opened a Pandora's box, right? We started to find things we didn't realize were there, which was exciting. But then we said, man, I wish I could do a little bit more than search a term. So here comes the LLMs, right? So this was our first trip down that path with our robot food, feeding it to Chat GPT. And that's where Strala GPT came along. And it has been just unreal. It's been so fun to play with. And I'll give some examples of that. But what we're able to do is feed the Vcons. Again, all the conversational data, including replies to emails and texts. We're also able to feed in other data we may have, inventory, lead data, which is the source, and the comments, customer data, and we know their whole history. And Michael, I don't know where your audience stands on Chat GPT and the familiarity with it.
Well, that's a good question. Why don't you drop in the comments, leave a note if you are using Chat GPT or another LLM or AI in your day-to-day, or is it something that you've not explored yet? Like, if you could, let us know, and that'll help us with, kind of building our content out to to either educate and show you some creative ways on how you can leverage it in your day to day. We actually just released a great white paper. You can go to Stralid.com/white paper, and it's AI in the automotive industry, right? So download that white paper if you're unfamiliar with it or you're hearing AI a lot, right? I know a lot of vendors are throwing that out there. It's the buzzword of the century, and again, it's a big driver of this revolution.
Got it. Okay, so let's assume then we've got a broad spectrum of understanding here. So if you've heard the term LLM, it's a large language model. So to keep it simple, it's a chat bot that specializes in the English language. Not that it can't do all the other languages, but it understands questions like you wouldn't believe. And if you go play with Chat GPT, you can ask it anything in the world. You can ask it how to do things. You can ask it to teach you things. You can ask it to write for you. And it's so good with the English language and all the data it knows, as Michael mentioned, it could just perform every action. So imagine that instead of just knowing the internet, now it knows your business, your dealership, right? And so it can answer questions at scale. So again, before we used to say we searched Staten Island and just gave us a static list, right? Well, with Strala GPT, you could say list customers who said they were shopping dealers in Staten Island, right? And it could say, hey, great, I found 25 of them in the last 3 days. Here they are. And now here's where it gets more fun is it doesn't stop there like search. You continue to work on those. So maybe the first one was a guy named Michael, right? And he said, they're closer to me. They've got a similar vehicle, right? Maybe you could just help me out with price. I could then say, write me an email to Michael to lock down that deal, to convince him to come here to Brooklyn instead of purchasing in Staten Island. And it will write a very impressive email to Michael, right? And it's that simple.
And it's tailored based on the Vcons. Okay. So for Michael, maybe Michael emailed and called and had a text, right? And it's going to look at all of those conversations and start speaking Michael's language, hitting those hot buttons too, right? It starts with a lead, the conversations, the kind of meat and potatoes, and the objective and the goal is for you, the dealer, to have an opportunity to show what that customer experience is and win the deal.
That's right. So let me give you two great use cases that we've run into so far with Strala GPT. The first one, we ran an internal session demoing Strala GPT, right? And so the first prompt we threw at it, and prompt is the term of the question or the first message you send to it. And we said, list customers who refused to set an appointment, right? Pretty nice, right? You want to know about the customers that called in and for whatever reason they declined, right? And we were just doing a demo at this point, not even researching. So we're going through the list and we grab one and the customer says, I'm out of state. I'm hoping to do a lot of this remotely if I can, if that's even an option. And the agent went on to say, we need you to come in to do some of these things, right? And right away, we kind of said, I wonder what that's about. And luckily, somebody from our team that had been involved all the way, we promote a lot within, he had been a manager for this dealer group. And he said, I know what's going on. They've had tons of problems in the past with out-of-state customers. And for dealers here listening, it can get a little funky, right? All your rates and things can change and how you do your tag and title, it can become a headache depending on how you're staffed, how many cars you sell. So he said they asked us to just not even set appointments remotely out of state anymore. So we said, okay, well, we said, I wonder how often that happens, right? So the dealer never had the ability to do that before. So we said, list customers, and we were able to filter by this dealer, list customers who mentioned they were shopping from out of state. And so it found 8 in a 3-day period. So based on what we just learned, that dealer said up to, I mean, do the math, that's up to 80 potential customers in a month that he said, I don't want, too much trouble, right? I think for 80 customers, a dealer would transform their processes or go grab some software tools to help simplify those headaches, right? Or mitigate it. So awesome, right?
I think 8 deals would be enough.
Yeah, no kidding. I agree. So that was a big one, right? And so that's just something you could never do before.
Right. Again, impact, the objective is to look, this is something new, right? So understanding what current resources are available. Not that this is a sales pitch, but you have to put a little time in researching what's out there. Again, that I'm going back to the white paper because it kind of guides and it provides some insight to what some of the traps are as well, right? Don't always chase the shiny object. There are actual solutions out there. So just make sure you understand the objective, and the objective of what Matt and his team have built is an insight based on what customers are saying and obstacles that are in the way of selling more cars. Identify them. Once I have yet to meet a dealer when given the challenge or an obstacle that they don't know a way around it. So there's more product.
Yeah. And I got to share one more example I love.
Oh yeah, please do.
Came from my world, and then we'll touch on the last product that's not out yet. So this example I love. So I was heavily involved with inventory and the used cars and keeping inventory turn as low as possible. Every dealer lives with that, right? And if you've got maybe a used car manager, he's out there and he may help promote or push an older vehicle, talk to the sales managers, he can talk to salespeople, he can adjust pricing to move an older car to be sold as soon as it can. But this is a great use case that solves the problem I talked about at the beginning, which is that CRMs are just form-based and there's so much information that gets lost. So imagine a scenario where a customer calls in and says, hey, look, Michael, I'm looking for a pickup truck. You have 2 different blue Tacomas. They're beautiful. That would be my ideal car. Unfortunately, the price is a little bit higher than I'd like. You've got a red Nissan Frontier that's more in my price range, right? It's not Tacoma, but I'll be happy with it. It fits my use case, right? So as a BDC agent, as a salesperson, your script you've been trained your whole life is about, great, when what's better, right? 12 or 3, right? Whatever it may be, right? And you go and you just try to get them in the store and close them before they go somewhere else, right? And not that that's wrong, right? Good on them. You got them in the store and sold them. But now picture this, two Tacomas and a Frontier. What if those Tacomas, one of them's 60 days old, another one's 80, probably some would argue shouldn't even be on the lot anymore, and maybe that Frontier is like 8 days old. Right. So imagine a used car manager being able to say, hey, let's conversations today on vehicles over 45 days old.
Right.
I mean, that would be massive because all it takes is that alert coming to a used car manager discovering that he can now go to that salesperson or get involved and lower the price of that vehicle before he loses a lot more money potentially. Right.
Right.
But what happens to the customer? They're thrilled. They're thrilled. They set an appointment on a car that was the next best, and they got a call back saying, hey, we're going to make your favorite one work. Massive. And that could happen all day long, which this leads me, starting to go down the path a little bit to the last piece of our products that we're building.
So before we, sorry for the interruption, Matt, but before we jump in, can you just, so you covered a couple of the prompts. We have these built out very easy kind of some pre-designed prompts, and they range. I think right now there's 15.
15, yeah.
That if you hit those daily, you're going to sell more.
That's right.
And you're going to know more about what's going on in your dealership than you did without it. I can guarantee that. It's well worth the 5 minutes. So that's the investment, right? It's a small time investment, 5 minutes in the platform for a significant return. So I suppose, I can just list them in the comments. If you're watching along and listening on YouTube, go down into the description, and I'll put some examples. If you'd like a demo, you can go through that process too.
Yeah. And I'll speak on that real quick. We did 15 example prompts. They make it easier for our dealers and users, right? But it's important to note that they are generic. And I mean that they will work and they're valuable to all dealers, but the real value of the Vcon and these tools is it does what a similar company out there, maybe one that analyzes phone calls, does, is they base all of their value on the industry. This works for the industry. Because they don't have your data, they can't say this works best for Michael Donovan Ford. Right. And that's what this really unlocks. Right. So the prompts are there to guide you and help you understand, or the suggested ones on screen. But really the value comes from you exploring and playing around and asking questions that you've never been able to before.
And so they don't have to use one of the 15. They can enter any question in about their inventory, their leads, their competition. It's all of that insight is unlocked.
That's right.
Outstanding, Matt. Product. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. So this one's big, and this is important. So we understand that the spectrum of tech savviness in the car business is all over the place, right? Dealer groups I'm in, you've got people that are retired and they're just there looking through phone calls just as a side job, as a small gig, and they're not really good at technology. You've got your sales managers or salespeople that are just working nonstop, right? Just pushing, selling cars, doing a great job. They've got no time on their hands, even if they are tech savvy. And then some of these dealer groups, or even a smaller family business, they may have somebody that's very tech savvy and has time to research, and they're good at it, right? So across that spectrum, now the guys that have time can go into GPT and learn. But for most everybody else that either aren't tech savvy, you don't have time, right? How do you really get value from these tools, from the insights? And so what we've built, or in the process of building, is called Signals. And I'll use my same use cases before. So let's use the use case of show me customers today who mentioned vehicles older than 45 days old, right? That used car manager in a smaller dealership, he may be going to auctions. He may be messing with recon and pricing, and he's doing so much, right? He doesn't have time to go do that every day. Signals allows him to type that prompt in and then say, deliver that to me, whatever method he wants. So it could be an email, or in this case, he may say, send me a text message, and he'll say, as it happens, or he could say at the end of every day, right? So what it does is it says, okay, or it enables dealers or employees, whoever it may be, to say, here's what's most important to me. Here's the value I've found. It's things we don't even know yet. Deliver it to me so I don't have to remember to go look every day, because we know you're busy, right? And so we're hammering that out, and we'll probably have some previews of it next quarter.
Okay, so I think it's safe to say by the end of 2025, Signals will be available.
Oh, yeah.
And these alerts will just hit text message, email. Here are deals. Just grab them. Just call them. Right? It's almost like that virtualized TO based on the conversations and again, unlocking that dark data.
Yeah, that's it.
It's outstanding. Matt, do you have any advice that you would give dealerships that are new to conversational data?
I start exploring it if you can, right? Spend more time in it. If you've got a tool already that transcribes calls for you, start to look through there and maybe start with the question, if only I had known, if only we had known, right? The stuff that happens in your store every day when a customer walks out upset or a deal didn't come together, and you think, if only I had known, and go see if you could dig in your conversation data and find an example. In which maybe you find one and say, man, how many more? Or maybe you just run out of steam. You spend 15 minutes and say, this could take all day, right? That's the proof's there, right?
That's great advice. Just dive in. So before we break, I do want to mention that this episode of Dealer Insights is proudly sponsored by Strahlid, the automotive industry's trusted partner in tech-enabled BDC solutions. At Strahlid, our mission is clear: to empower your dealership with cutting-edge technology, actionable data, and unparalleled expertise, so you never miss a lead, never miss a deal, and never miss an opportunity to drive performance. Ready to see how Strolid can transform your dealership success? Visit Stralid.com today and discover why leading dealerships choose Stralid. Matt, it's been a great conversation. Really good to hear about all of the work. I can see the conviction and passion on a daily basis that you have in the work that you're doing. And it's important not only to Stralid, but for the industry, man. True pioneer. And, I would like to ask everybody to give us some feedback on Dealer Insights. Hit us up on socials, Stralid.com. A lot of resources, a lot of information. Big special thanks to Vin, Shauna, and the entire team here at Stralid. If anyone's interested, has a guest you'd like to hear and see on Dealer Insights, go to our website. We have a page, has all the episodes, and you can submit yourself to join the show. We'll look at every one of those opportunities seriously. So thank you again. Have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Matt.